Adnan Januzaj staying. Was that what you expected?
Yeah, absolutely. He's played the last couple of games. I think it's got to the point now where Januzaj has to prove himself. I thought that this season would be a really good one for him. I thought that Louis van Gaal coming in would be his type of player. A winger, technical, gifted, showed glimpses last season of real fantastic performances. And I think you'll see him play quite a few games over this next few weeks, and Louis van Gaal will be finding out about him. I certainly didn't think they would allow him to go on loan to another club during this period now.
What about Darren Fletcher, though? Interesting situation with him. I mean, does he need to leave Old Trafford to further his career, Gary?
It's a difficult one. I mean, I think because Manchester United don't have too many midweek matches, I know they've got one this week, but generally they've only got Saturday. Louis van Gaal's got a big squad and Darren Fletcher's not been getting a lot of football, but the fact that I think Michael Carrick's just picked up an injury for 4 weeks may make him think that he could get some football in the next few weeks. I don't think he'd be in a rush to get out of Manchester United at this moment in time and panic. He can wait to the summer and do it in his own time. I think at this moment in time it would be not sensible probably of him to move.
Anderson is a player, obviously, who hasn't featured for some time. Is it a little bit of a disappointment that it didn't really work out for him? Because a lot was expected of him at Man United.
Yes, and I think that there have been some really good performances, but again, not consistently, either through fitness, picked up a lot of injuries, but generally I think you'd have to say that he looked back at his Manchester United career with some level of disappointment, and I think having played with him, he's got an enormous amount of talent, and I think of some of the games, he played a couple of games at Anfield that I can remember, or against Liverpool, and had big matches. He was really capable of playing in the big matches and was a big game player, big game mentality, lots of skill, but never was fit enough, I felt, to be able to really do it consistently week in, week out in the Premier League, and that's a real shame, because that's when you have one of those players that you look back upon at the sort of end of their careers and think, could I have been that little bit more driven, determined? You know, he's got the talent, but he just lacked in those other areas, and he's been unfortunate with injuries. I'll give him that.
In terms of the business that has been done by Manchester United in this transfer window, two players at sort of opposite ends of their career, really, with Victor Valdés coming in unattached. He was, of course, at Barcelona, and then Sadik El Fittori. Tell us a little bit about him.
Valdés or Fittori?
Oh, Fittori, I think, is the one we're interested in.
I'd never seen the boy play, but it was something Phil and Scholes had been down at Salford, obviously, they're in the 8th tier. The boy had been playing, I think, on the park for the previous 6 months, not really doing much. Came down to Salford, and Phil and Scholes, he really liked him straight away. Phil and Scholes then took over a match and gave him his debut and said straight away, this kid's got too much talent to be sort of disappearing out of the game. I suppose in some ways it's a little bit of a wake-up call for what actually happens when players disappear out of clubs at the age of 18, 19. He was at Manchester City, and not a lot of clubs want to take a risk on these players, and I have to say a lot disappear out of the game when they have got the talent, and it's something we've been saying for a long time. Is the pathway there, even for players who drop out of top clubs, to then be picked up by the likes of, I don't know, Stockport, Bury, Rochdale, Oldham, all the other clubs that are in the area, but it's not happening, and it's a real shame.
The pathway clearly is there at Salford, isn't it, basically? But are they sort of almost going to become a little bit of a feeder club? He's definitely one for the future. Do you expect you might spot others?
It certainly won't be a feeder club. I just think that at this moment in time, when you're in the level of football that Salford are in, that when you see a player of that ability and you genuinely feel as though you can get somebody back into high-level football, a number of calls were made to different clubs. United took him for a few days on trial, and when the call came back, I think it was Phil rang me and said, look, United are going to sign him. I was like, wow, that's an incredible story, really, because something that we just never expected. We expected, obviously, through the recommendations that Phil and Scholes had given, that he would be good enough to play at a higher level than where we were, but for United to give him an opportunity, it's a great chance for him.
Is it also a signing that you would want him to, obviously, like for example, Dele Alli with Tottenham being linked with him, and part of that deal might be that he'll go back to the MK Dons to continue his sort of first-team experience. Is that something you think is vital for young players as well? I
think it's important they play. I think we see that a lot with England, where you have these talented players who are sort of between the age of 19 and 21, 22, and they're almost 15th, 16th. You know they've got the talent to develop, and you know they've got, with the right and a fair wind and the opportunity given by a manager, but managers are under a lot of pressure to deliver, and they haven't got time for development of young players. They have to deliver now. I think that's one of the big problems that I think we find, that you have a lot of players who are talented, England under-21 players, squad players, who aren't playing regularly for the clubs.